Hello, everybody, and welcome. Uh, I am Meg. I'm Reverend Meg Biddle. Normally, I'm on a program called Ministry Mondays with Meg, but for those who are watching live, obviously it's not Monday. This is a bonus. So today, I have with me Reverend Dr. Carmichael Crutchfield, who is one of our Judson Press authors. I'm also going to get my notes because his credentials are pretty impressive. He is the Clara Scott Chair of Church and Ministry. He is the professor of Christian education, spiritual formation, and youth ministry at Memphis Theological Seminary, and has been there for about 12 years. He has two books that have been published through Judson Press, one of which he co-authored for those who watched us on Monday with Reverend Dr. Denise Janssen. And he's also an ordained elder in the CME Church. And that's just hitting the highlights. So I'm going to let Dr. Crutchfield fill us in, tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you serve.
Okay, thank you. I am certainly the name Carmichael Crutchfield is where I begin, and I will say what I do. Uh, that somewhat sometimes defines who I am as well. Uh, I have the unique opportunity to serve both church and the academy, and as Reverend Biddle said earlier, I am a professor at the Memphis Theological Seminary where I do teach. But I also am the General Secretary of Christian Education and Formation for the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. That I was just elected for a sixth four-year term, and uh, this is I've served longer there, and I've also been a professor, and also I pastor a church uh, in the in between times, uh, and with all of that, uh, I consider myself, as I have told, I tell my students in the classroom, I teach Christian education, youth ministry, spiritual formation from a pastor's perspective and from a pastor's heart. And I tell the people in the congregation, I pastor from the teacher's heart and with the teacher's uh, vocation in mind at all times. So I'm really happy to be able to do those things, both in the church and the academy. Those things cross paths in many ways. So, in a quick nutshell, that's who I am. That's what I do and what I'm about. Yes.
So, um, no rest, not a whole, very busy. It sounds like, which is sometimes a blessing and a curse. I think.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. Um, the way you approach it with your congregation, that you're approaching this one with the teacher's heart and one with the pastor's heart. Myself in seminary, I was thinking, oh wow, I didn't have seminary professors who were who were serving,
Yeah.
in the local church, and how important that is, and how beneficial that would. Yes, they had experience, but it had been a while. So as we all know, COVID changed things,
Yeah.
continues to change things, and to have people, who are able to speak from living the experience, um, would have been wonderful. I'm assuming that your students and your congregation feel the same way, Dr. Crutchfield.
I think so. I think they both feel the benefit from that taking place because the passion for both uh, teaching and pastoring and preaching, all of that comes in no matter what arena that I'm in. And then on top of that, as far as a pastor's concerned, uh, there's the administrative part of being a pastor. Um, Before I accepted the call to preach and went to seminary, I was in my 30s when I made that move. By that time, I had worked in the corporate world in management. I was an accounting major, worked in accounting, and um, then moved on into supervision. But all of that has all helped it inform my understanding of ministry and leadership, which is probably the place where I am more concerned than anything these days is about leadership. And I think that I have been formed and in that way. I know I have through the various experiences, um, uh, but certainly what has made that formation be of importance is the spiritual aspect, my love for God and love for Jesus, that make that formation really viable in the places where I serve.
So I was looking at the titles of your books.
Hmm.
So we've got Formation of a People, Christian Education in the African American Church, and then you co-authored the Pressing Forward book with Dr. Denise Janssen. Um, and in here, you're we're talking about formation and youth ministry. So, what led you to decide that this is where I feel like God wants me um, to lead others, to write about that? What inspired you to write?
Well, the inspiration I think comes from the fact that um, I have seen and continue to see so many young people who, I guess, over the years, who have were part of the church when they were younger, but not a part of the church as they grow older. And people have had a lot of theories about why this is and why it's not. But it's my premise that much of what has happened and continues to happen in the places where I serve is that we haven't in the churches that I'm been responsible for, we haven't done a good job of really forming young people into what I say, forming them into the likeness of Christ, and it's in this likeness that leads to the love of Christ, the love of love of God, love of neighbors, and eventually leads to the love of the church, and in such a way that people don't just leave the church because they have some attachment, they've been shaped in and formed in that. And it's my argument that it takes a special effort and information and work from the part of those of us who are in the business of formation, of helping to get people to that place, and particularly with young people. So that's a big part of my premise and the reason that I have sort of pushed that way. Part of my dissertation, PhD, was around the sense of leadership formation, and sort of a nuance of talking about leadership and about formation of that leadership. And although I don't talk about it in my dissertation, I am formed by the fact that I look at my own life and those that I have witnessed, that how, I mean, I'm sort of a testimony of how leadership has been formed over the years within me through the church, as from a very young person. And I think that's a part, but and even the people not even knowing they were doing it, they were doing it. Yeah.
So you grew up in the church?
I grew up in the church. Yes.
Yeah.
I grew up. I always tell the story about growing up in the church is that I attended church all my life. I have, except for the 4 years I was in undergrad where I didn't attend church. So
I understand that.
right. Yeah.
So you grew up in the church, and as you grew up in the church, other than those 4 years in undergrad, and we all know that, um, how that works. Did you have like a sense of calling growing up?
Not, I don't, not recognizable.
Okay.
Um, but what then when I say about, I don't necessarily say it's recognizable, but I was always placed in places where I could exhibit or show, I mean, some sense of leadership, some sense of being able to be oral, and doing things. I was speaking in church when I was very young. I was
Mhm.
teaching when I was very young. Uh, and I didn't know anything about calling at that time at all. And all I know that, I mean, it was something that I did, and I continued to do it through my young adult life, and uh, really didn't. I really never felt. People said that they felt a calling and ran away from it, but I never really felt that calling until I was in my 30s, and that's when
Until
I
you,
stepped in. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I was curious if it was one of those, well, I was called, but decided I was going to do what I wanted to do, or if it was, just kind of like that gradual becoming, that you come into.
yeah.
So you'd been in the working world, and now you're going, did you start by, okay, now I'm going to seminary? Is that how it went?
That's how it went, yes.
That's
Because
how,
in my denomination, you're not required to go to seminary to be
okay.
ordained. Um, but it was the one thing that, as a young adult, that I mean, I guess college taught me was for me, anything that you do, you need to go to college to do it, and I go to school, I go to do something to do it, and so it was a no brainer for me for as far as going to seminary once I was called, and um, and so I'm of course was working on a very lucrative paying job and a lot of benefits, two small children and wife and all of that. But we pulled up stakes and moved away from Camden, Arkansas to Memphis,
Mhm.
Tennessee to go to seminary, and it's been it was the best decision I've ever made because it's led to one thing to another, and all of those things uh, have things that I can say have been good, hopefully for not only me but for the people that I've had opportunity to serve. Yeah.
So, as somebody who, serves in so many different capacities, and especially as we're talking about youth, um, what is something that we need to know um, that's important for the church, for the world, you know, to know as we help our own, you know, children.
Okay. I think that the simple thing is that it becomes particularly in the African American experience, the sense of village and understanding that um, our children need more than just their parents.
Mm.
Um, they need a village. They need people. They need the church. They need people who give them support and give them love, show them love, and not only do that, but they pay attention to them and give time to them. I think that the small groups that we do with young people is critical because we're helping them to understand what community is about, and um, and if we have that sense as the church, knowing that all of the groups, all of the things we do in youth ministry, children's ministry, whatever, that we're building a community, and that we're not just giving them something to do to keep them occupied, but certainly building community. And by doing so, placing before them people who can help guide them with love and with a gentle spirit, and and with their situation, and their and by doing that, and when I say pay attention, means that we have to. Uh, uh, Sometimes that means for adults that we have to put ourselves in some uncomfortable places in order that we might be able to hear what our children and youth are saying to us. And I think that part of the reason that when I was talking about the lack of formation is that not enough adults are willing to put themselves in uncomfortable situations. They want everything to be to their comfort and level. And sometimes that doesn't work, and we have to go and listen to what they are. When I was actively and when I was actively involved, and that has only stopped in the last several years. When I was very actively involved with young people in the church, um, one of the things I learned is, as I do this when I talk about youth ministry, is that I learned is that you have to go to places, go to their playground, so to speak, and learn those things that are important to them. And part of that, one of the things that I've always taught about this is that one of the places we learn what's important to them is to music. Uh, and music helps us to see whether we understand it or not. And this is one of the uncomfortable places for us because we have our own genre of music that we want to hear. So but it is about paying attention, listening, and putting ourselves in the places that young people are, and listening to them. And in our book, Pressing Forward, I believe that the interviews that we did with people who had not long left being a youth, um, sort of bears that out, that there's a need for adults to really pay attention to young people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that matters so much, and yes, that while we may not enjoy their music, I've got three children of my own, two of which are now adult age, but and one at 12, and yeah, I agree. It's important to hear their music and to be in those places where they'll let you be. I mean, yeah, sometimes they don't want you around, but um and you're right, it does. It gets uncomfortable for you, for them, for but that's part of what it's about. The I think one of the best things I ever did when I was serving as in my last pastor, it was just to go and um eat, feed them,
Hmm.
feed them and listen to them talk, feed them without an agenda,
Right.
the teenagers, but uh, there was also a local college, and just go and feed them. And they're like, so what are we doing? Well, we've got stuff if you want to do stuff,
Hmm.
but I'm just providing food and a place for you guys to be. And then they're like, well, that's great that there's no expectation,
Right.
um,
Exactly.
and when you take that expectation away,
Hmm.
then they let themselves down, that they let their guards down a little bit, and
Right.
slowly, um, and slowly, by the grace of God, let you in, kind of thing. So, um, I love that what you offer, Dr. Crutchfield, is so practical. That it's not, hey, you've got to do all these things. Of course, we want people to um, be educated and understand, biblically, and to not do more harm than good, that we want to include and not exclude, but just that your answer is to listen, to be, I think is really um is really a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you and your ministry and the work that you do.
Yes.
So I will just let everybody know who's watching. I will be sure to put links to Dr. Crutchfield's page at Memphis Seminary below our our show here, so that anyone who is interested in finding out about all of his publications, because you said you write a lot of curriculum,
Yeah.
correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yes. quite a bit of a lot. I am the curriculum writer for our church. Yes, I do.
So you are the curriculum for the Christian
Method.
Methodist Episcopal Church.
Right.
Do I have that
Exactly.
right?
That
Okay.
is correct.
All
Yes.
right. I want to make sure that I got it right. And then of course, they can go to Judson Press. You're going to be at Space for Grace with us out in September, so um, we welcome people to come out and meet you. And I'm sure you'd be willing to sign a book
Yes.
or two, and just have conversation with people. I want to ask you the question that I ask everybody as we wrap up here. In all that you do, what what in your ministry brings you joy?
Well, I think probably the thing that brings me joy, well, I know it is that when I have put forth an effort to provide ministry, whether it's a video lesson or whether it's a curriculum piece that's been written, or if it's a book that's been written or a lesson that's been taught, and someone sees me that um, and says to me, "Thank you for uh, providing that, and don't stop providing that." That brings probably as much joy to me as anything else because I know that what I've been doing uh, is being helpful to
Yeah.
people, and that's what it's all about. Um, excuse me. Um, I say that for an example. During the pandemic, I started a couple of things, but one I'll mention is that I
Okay.
started doing our church school lessons for adults. I do a video, 15-20 minute video each week, and it's provided for the entire denomination access. And um, this summer we had our general conference in Cincinnati, and people from all over the United States and actually from Africa as well. But there were so many people that complimented me about that I didn't even know it was reaching and touching. So that brings as much joy as anything else. It's sort of like when you're teaching in the classroom and the light bulb comes on. It's like, yeah, that it's worth all of this, and
Yes.
that brings joy. Yes.
Good. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing because so often we just don't know, do we?
Oh,
And then here it is.
mhm.
Here it is, and you go, okay, all right, God, I got it. All right. So it's just kind of like the okay, we keep on keeping on,
Yes.
keep doing the good work, and because it's making a difference.
Yeah.
And I thank you for the difference that you're making in ministry in the world, in the lives that you have the opportunity to touch. Um, and I'm grateful that you were able to meet with me today and share a little bit about your story. Um, and I look forward to meeting you in person
And
um, at Space for Grace.
yes, same here. I look forward to it as well.
Yeah, so thank you so much. And we'll thank everybody for watching us and join us out in Kansas City. Catch some of Dr. Crutchfield's author colleagues that are going to share a little bit about their lives as well. And we'd love to hear from you all. So thank you for watching.
Thank you. Thank you.